Okay, good evening everyone. A Freilich and Chanukah. We have a fantabulous shir for tonight. Parshas Mikeitz and Chanukah. We're continuing the shir on Sefer Reishis, which are again generously sponsored by Dr. Zakim and Mishpachta Le'ilei Nishmas, Rav Shlomo Eliezer ben Rabbi Yaakov Zakheim, and Le'ilei Nishmas Rivka Bas Tuvi Halevi. Began Eden Teimenu Chasam. They should be Melitza Yisham for their whole family, for Simcha Sanachas, Ad Bias Goel Tzadek. This week's shir is sponsored by my dear friend in Eretz Yisrael anonymously. May Hashem bless him. Ba'mizrach. Okay, tonight's shir is also dedicated by my dear friend Reb Avi Tuckman as a zechus for Shmira for all the soldiers. Hashem should watch over them and protect them. Mikol Nego Machal Mikol Sarvat Sukkah. Tonight's shir is also dedicated by our dear friend Mishpachas Herman, Mrs. Yehudit Herman, Le'iloi Nishmas, her sister Ellen Goldberg of Indianapolis, Indiana. Yeah? Where's Indianapolis? Okay. On her third yard site, Esther Shoshana Bas Ruvain. Also, in honor of the new Sefer, which you might not have heard about yet, but we're going to get to that soon. And also Zechus Shmira for the Chayalim. Tonight's shir is also sponsored by my dear friend Dr. Yitzchak Samet. Shem should be mevarachim shefa bracha v'hatzlacha. Tonight is the 7th night of Chanukah, so still plenty of time to get the new Sefer. So you have it already, but you don't have two. It looks, you should know, that two on the shelf look even. Doesn't just look twice as good as one. It's like a whole different feel. Yeah, you like that one. That's a good plug. Look how nice the gold lettering is. Josh, right? It looks nice. Now, what you could do is, and you could leave it on the shelf just in the cover, and nobody will know you actually pulled the book out. That's also an option. Also, the Sefer that's available on Chanukah, The Light and the Splendor. We have an amazing shir tonight. Actually, for quite a bit, we've been trying to finish up Bereshis Volume 2 in Lashon HaKodesh. So everybody wants to know, what is taking so long? What's taking so long is we wanted to complete the subject of the sale of Yosef HaTzadik. Because we know, Rabbeinu Bechai tells us from the Arizal that the 10 brothers who were involved in selling Yosef were Nisgalgel. They reincarnated as the Asara Harugei Malchus, the 10 martyrs. And we wanted to treat this subject as fully as possible. So, over the years, we wanted to identify which brother is which Tana. So we discussed the opinion that Yosef is Rabbi Akiva. We learned the opinion that Shimon is Rabbi Akiva. We learned the opinion that God was Rabbi Akiva. That Rabbi Akiva came to atone for God's role in the sale. So Rabbi Akiva could have been Shimon. Rabbi Akiva, that we did last year. Rabbi Akiva could have been Yosef. Rabbi Akiva could have been Hashem. Last year we did a shir that who was Ruvain? Ruvain was Nisgalgel as Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus. So, but I knew there was still one more missing piece. And that is one more possibility of who could be Rabbi Akiva. And this subject ties not only into Parshas Mikeitz, but into Chanukah, and this will be, I would call it, the final piece, in at least for the beginning of this subject. In the Pisma in Ma'is, we say, Yevanim nikbetzu alai. The Greeks gathered upon me, Azai bimei Chashmanim, in the times of the Chashmonam. Ufartzu chaymos migdalai. They breached the walls of my fortress. Anybody know how many breaches they made? 13 breaches. V'timu kol hashmanim, they defiled all the oil. Omi noisar kan kanim, and from the leftover jugs, naasa neis l'shoshanim, a miracle occurred to those compared to a rose. B'nei vina, men of understanding, yemei shmoina, 8 days, kavu shir urinanim. They established song and festivities. Okay. Shir urinanim. The question is, who exactly are these men of understanding? B'nei Vina, men of understanding. Who are they? Who are these men of understanding? Were they the Chashmonaim? Since when do we call Chashmonaim men of understanding? We usually call them Kohanim. Who are these men of understanding? What's interesting is that there is a group of people that the Tanakh refers to as men of understanding. Anybody know who that is? Shevet Yissaschar. Shevet Yissaschar are called men of understanding. In Divrei Hayamim, it says, Uvivnei Yissaschar, Yoidei Vina Lo'itim, who know understanding of the times, Ladas Ma Yasa Yisrael, to know what Yisrael should do, Rashehem Masayim. Interesting, the Bnei Yissaschar are called Bina Lo'itim, and perhaps then they are the Bnei Vina. You know, it's interesting, the Gemara says that the way Hashem created the world and the dynamics of husband and wife, the pasuk says that V'hu yimshal bach, that a woman may want to have certain companionship with her husband, but she doesn't have the goal to ask explicitly. It always comes from the man. That's, the Gemara says, human nature. However, the Gemara makes a very interesting statement. The Gemara says a woman who asks will have children even greater than the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu. The Gemara asks, really? Who could possibly have children greater than Moshe Rabbeinu? Says the Gemara, in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, they were men, they were chachamim, they were nevoinim, they were yaduim, but they were looking for nevoinim. They didn't find any nevoinim. However, Leah had someone who had bina. Leah had Yissaschar. Yissaschar is yoidei bina la'itim. Why was Leah zoicha to Yissaschar? Because Leah asked to live with Yaakov. How do we see that? Because when he was coming home, she was riding on a donkey coming out toward him. So she took the initiative. And because she took the initiative, she had a child greater even than the generation of Moshe Rabbeinu, Yissaschar. The Gemara asks, yeah, but we just mentioned human nature as it comes from the man. Yes, says the Gemara, but if the wife intimates, then it's considered admirable, and one will be zoicha to children even greater than Yissaschar. Okay, without getting into too much detail, what the Gemara ends up saying is that Yissaschar is considered the paragon of Bina. And therefore, perhaps, when we say B'nei Bina Yemei Shmaina, maybe it's referring to Shevet Yissaschar. And in fact, there are a number of sources that indeed the ones that enacted the miracle, the Yom Tov of Chanukah, were Shevet Yissaschar. Who says this? The Shir Ma'ayin. Shir Ma'ayin is in the back of the Tairas Moshe of the Chassam Sofer, from one of the Talmidei Chassam Sofer. He brings a very interesting medrash. This is a medrash pliya. Did anybody ever hear this medrash pliya on a pasuk in Shiurim? The pasuk says, "Hadudaim nasnu reach." The dudaim gave a fragrance. V'al pisachenu kol megadim, and by all of our doors are treats. That's a pasuk in Shiurim. It says, "Hadudaim nasnu reach." V'al pisachenu kol megadim, and the medrash darshans, "Hadudaim nasnu reach." Ruvain, he went to gather the dudaim in the field. And because of that, we have Chanukah. So in other words, Hadudaim nasnu reach. Because Ruvain gathered the dudaim, therefore, we have Ner Chanukah. So the question is, why because the dudaim gave reach, do we have Ner Chanukah? Where's the extension cord?
It's back in the briefcase.
Okay. Why because... Just some technical, why? Because Ruvain gathered the dudaim, do we have Ner Chanukah? Okay. You hear that? Why? Because Ruvain gathered the dudaim, do we have Ner Chanukah? Says the Shir Ma'ayin. Ruvain was gathering the dudaim. Leah comes to, Rachel comes to Ruvain and Leah and says, give me some of the dudaim. The dudaim had fertility-inducing properties. So Leah said, it's bad enough you want my husband, now you also want my dudaim? So Rachel says, I'll rent out Yaakov for the night. You give me the dam, I'll give you Yaakov. And that night, Leah lived with Yaakov, and who was born? Yissaschar. And who established Chanukah? Yissaschar. So that's the meaning of the Medrash. Hadudayim nasnu reach. That's Ruvain who gathered the Dudaim. And because of Ruvain gathering the Dudaim, V'al Pesachenu Kamigadim, we have Neirois Chanukah, because who established Chanukah? The Bnei Bina. Who are the Bnei Bina? Shevet Yissaschar. That's the Medrash. But the bottom line is, you see, who established Chanukah? Not the Chashmonaim. Shevet Yissaschar established Chanukah. By the way, you know who else says this? You're good. Rav Ron Yosef Chaim Masud Abi Chatzera. Not to be confused with Rav Masud Abi Chatzera. Rav Ron Yosef Chaim Masud Abi Chatzera, a descendant. He says that's what it means. Bnei Bina, Shevet Yissaschar, who are Yoidei Bina Leitim, Yemei Shmoina Kavu Shiurim Anim. So if you wanted to know who established Chanukah, Shevet Yissaschar.
How could they establish it before the nace of Chanukah?
No, not the person Yissaschar, the son of Yaakov. In the times of Chanukah, the Shevet Yissaschar, who were the heads of the Sanhedrin, they were the ones who legislated Chanukah. Okay, so interesting, because Reuven gathered the Dudaim, therefore we have Chanukah. And it is well known, friends, that there is a famous sefer, a beautiful sefer, a classic sefer, the Sefer Bnei Yissaschar, written by Rav Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov, who he was traveling once to the Chayz of Lublin, and he's traveling, thinking to himself, you know, I wonder what Shevet I'm from. Did you ever wonder about that? I know what Shevet I'm from. I have a tradition, I'm from Shevet Yehuda. That's what my grandfather told us, and that we're from Rashi, and we're from David. And don't be that impressed. As we said many times, almost all Ashkenazim come from Rashi. 80% of Ashkenazim come from Rashi. But the Bnei Yissaschar was wondering, what Shevet does he come from? Now, at that time, he was not the Bnei Yissaschar. He was Rav Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov. And he's going to his Rebbe, the Chayz of Lublin. What was the Chayz of Lublin's name? Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, no? Yeah, so... And he told his Rebbe, you know, Rebbe, whenever Chanukah comes, I feel such inspiration. My soul is on fire. My soul is stirring. Rebbe, where does this come from? And I know it's not because I come from the Chashmonaim, because I'm not a Kohen. And the Rebbe said that, let me tell you something. This was what was going on in the Bnei Yissaschar's mind on the way to the Chayza Lublin. He walks into the Chayza takes one look at him, he says, Tzvi Elimelech, you're from Shevet Yissaschar. That's why every year when Chanukah comes, your soul is on fire. Because since the Shevet Yissaschar established and legislated Chanukah, you feel a special connection to Chanukah, and therefore that's what Shevet you're from. He didn't have to say anything, he didn't have to ask anything. The Rebbe just looked him in the eye and he says, you're from Shevet Yissaschar. Therefore, Rav Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov named his sefer Bnei Yissaschar. His son, Rabbi Elazar, named his sefer Yoidei Bina. Why? Because since his father was from Yissaschar, and Yissaschar is Yoidei Bina Lo'itim, so let me tell you something. If your father is from Yissaschar, guess what? You're also from Yissaschar. So he figured, if the Tata named the Sefer Bnei Yissaschar, and by the way, if you look by Chanukah, one of the chapters on Chanukah in the Bnei Yissaschar is called Sarei Yissaschar. So there's a very particular connection between... he has tremendous amount of writing on Chanukah, and he himself would always feel a special connection to Chanukah. In fact, it's reported that he had every night of Chanukah Torah on the words Yehuda HaMaccabi. Every night he would say gematrias and ramazim and secrets on the words Yehuda HaMaccabi. But again, this is all to bring out who established Chanukah? Shevet Yissaschar. But I discovered it's more than that. Because, you know, there's a shaila on Chanukah, whether the parties that we make, are they Sudas Rishus or they're Sudas Mitzvah? Simply, they should be Sudas Rishus. So what are you doing exactly? You're intaking high caloric foods. Yeah? You're setting your health back years and years just from 8 days. You know, my father told me about the donuts. There's a very important rule. Ein lecha rishus lehishtamesh bahem ela leroisam belvad. Anyway, so what? It's a Sudas mitzvah? How's a Sudas mitzvah? So many Rishonim say it's not a Sudas mitzvah. But the Ramah brings it might be a Sudas mitzvah because these are the days they inaugurated the Mizbeach. In Parshas Nasai, we're going to read it on Friday morning. We read it every morning, right? We read every morning the Chanukah HaMizbeach. Of all the karbanos that were brought by Yehuda, by Yissaschar, by all the 12 days of Nisan, whose idea was it? Only by one of the days, by most of the days it says, Ba'yayim hashviyi nasi livnei. Not right? But by the second day, by Shevet Yissaschar, it says, Hikriv es karbanai. Says the Medrash, why does it say Hikriv by Yissaschar? Because the whole thing was his idea. All the karbanos that were brought, he was mechadish and he told everybody, hey, we need to bring karbanos, this is what we need to do. The Medrash in Shiurim says, Kach me'itam, v'hayu mahu kach me'itam, mi nasan lohem es ha'etza, Amar Rabbi Simoin, shivtoi shel Yissaschar. Amar lahem, ha-mishkan hazeh she'atam oisim, parechu ba'avir. This mishkan that you're making, it's floating in the air. Asulai agalois, kedei she'hei nitan bahem. Hu sha'akasim mishabech shevet Yissaschar, u'bnei Yissaschar yoidei bina lo'itim. So not only did Shevet Yissaschar establish the Yom Tov of Chanukah, they were the ones who came up with the idea of how to inaugurate the Mizbeach. Isn't that interesting? So now I want to share with you something that I found today.
Was it Yissaschar?
Yissaschar.
How come they don't pronounce it the shin, the second?
Why? Because the word Yissaschar has two meanings, two shins. One is Nasan Hashem Schari. Leah says God rewarded me, and the other thing is Kisachar Secharticha. She bought Yaakov for the night. That's not a very nice. That we throw under the rug. That meaning. So we keep that one silent.
Was he part of the plan to kill Yosef?
Avada.
He was agreed to that.
Of course.
How could he do such a thing?
We'll have to talk about that maybe. This might be the night to talk about that. Because next week we're already in Parshas Vayigash, and now we're talking about the sale of Yosef. So we might want to have to deal with that question.
He had Bina. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to come to that. Okay. So right now, what have we established? That the Yom Tov of Chanukah was legislated by Bnei Bina, Shevet Yissaschar. Not only did Yissaschar establish Chanukah, it was their idea to initiate the karbanos to inaugurate the Mizbeach. I found in a number of Svarim, the Yom Tov of Chanukah is a tikkun for Mechiras Yosef. We sold Yosef. It's a sin that we have to deal with in every generation. God just punished the Jewish people because of the sin of Yosef a few weeks ago. Did you know that? Do you remember? Where Hamas sent missiles out of Shifa Hospital, and they tore down half their hospital. And who was blamed? Israel was blamed. And what did it say on the front page of the newspaper? Blood libel. Why are there blood libels? We said here in the shir many times. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman says, Rabbi Chaim Pelagi says, that the reason why the Jewish people suffer from blood libels is because we invented the blood libel. We sold Yosef. Yaakov says, where is he? We dipped his tunic in blood. We said to Yaakov, hey Yaakov, do you recognize this? Hakerna. We made up the blood libel. Says Rabbi Chanan, in every generation there's a blood libel against the Jewish people. So how do we rectify the Avera? The Tiferes Shlomo of Radomsk says, Chanukah hu tikkun lemechiras Yosef. You think it's a coincidence that on Shabbos Chanukah we read Vayeshev and Mikeitz, the parasha of Mechiras Yosef? Why? Chanukah is a tikkun for Mechiras Yosef. That's why, take a look at number 11. This is one of the most astounding ramazim to Chanukah. It's in this week's parsha, and it's from one of the early Rishonim. Vayahar Yosef itam es Binyamin vayomer la'asher beisai haveis ha'anashim haboy. So look at these words. Utivayach tevach v'hachein. Look at the word v'hachein. You take the word v'hachein and the last ches of tevach, Chanukah, says the Shiltei HaGiborim. Shiltei HaGiborim writes, in most years, Parshas Mikeitz is Chanukah. You take the ches of tevach, you appendage it to v'hachein, Chanukah. What about the other letters? The other letters. Look at this. Nun from v'hachein are Chanukah. And what about the letters Utivayach Tevach? Gematria 44, the 44 candles of Chanukah with the Shamash. You hear this? By the way, don't accept what I'm saying. You need to look, okay? You look at the word v'hachein and the ches. The ches of Tevach, v'hachein spells Chanukah. The letters Utivayach Tevach, Gematria 44 candles of Chanukah. Or the Imrei Noam of Jacob says like this. Ches v'hachein is Chanukah. And the remaining letters, Utavayach, Tes, Vez, are 36, the 36 candles of Chanukah without the Shamash. Also, Utavayach, Tevach, V'hachein is Gematria Kohanim, he says. This is one of the most authentic, authoritative ramazim to Chanukah. Why? Because Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef. In fact, Megala Amukai says, the Gematria of Yosef is Antiochus on Melech Yavan, because of the Mechiras Yosef, we went through the Gezeros of Chanukah in order to rectify it. So Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef. Now I want to throw out an idea.
What about this year?
Then this Rema is not going to do us that much good, but it's still the fact that you're not going to read it this way, but still it's the subject of Mechiras Yosef, right? So in the subject of Mechiras Yosef, by the way, the words Mikeitz Shinasayim, Smoil, Ner, Tadlik, Yemin, Mezuzah, says the Shiltei HaGiborim. Shinasayim, Vayihi, Mikeitz, Shinasayim, Smoil, Ner, Tadlik, Yemin, Mezuzah. So I want to advance an idea, Lo Ra'isi v'lo Shamati, but I think it's going to be Oyam v'Noira. And we're going to use Rabbi Yitzchak. How do I say your name?
Yes.
Rabbi Yitzchak, right? Is barking up a good tree. Yeah? If Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef, which brother would you say is most responsible for Mechiras Yosef? Now, in past years, we said that according to the opinion, we asked, why was Rabbi Akiva punished so harshly, more than any other Asar Harugei Malchus? So we brought from Megala Amukais, because Rabbi Akiva was Shimon, and Shimon's the one who started the whole Mechira. He said, Hine Bal HaChaloimos Halazeh, here's the dreamer's coming. So because Shimon started the whole thing, therefore Rabbi Akiva was Gilgal of Shimon, he got the most severe punishment. But today I want to argue differently. What was the sin of Mechiras Yosef? What was the sin? Why did the brothers want to sell Yosef? What, they didn't like him? They were jealous of him? He had a nicer suit. Yaakov gave him a custom-made suit, and they were wearing, a basement bargain suit from Borough Park. What was the brothers' problem? The Sforno writes that it was a halachic decision. That they thought that Yosef wanted to kill them, or he was tattling to Yaakov about them, and Yaakov would curse them, and they would die, or they would lose Olam Haba. So they halachically decided Yosef was a roidef. Yosef was trying to kill them. In fact, the Sforno says they never regretted selling him, because even when they said they're guilty, they didn't say they're guilty of selling him. They said they're guilty of not having mercy on him when he beseeched for his life. The bottom line is, this was not a personal act of venom and hatred. It was a halachic decision. In fact, Rav Zalman Sorotzkin writes, not only was it a halachic decision, it was a decision of a Jewish court. How do we know that? Because right after they sold him, what does it say? Vayeshvu lecha lechem. They sat down to eat bread. Why are they eating bread then? Says Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, because while you're adjudicating a case, the dayanim are not supposed to eat a lot. So when the case was over, the Torah says they sat down to eat bread. Why does the Torah say they ate bread? Because the Torah is emphasizing, don't think they just acted out of hatred. They paskind he's chayiv to be sold. And the proof that it was a psak halacha is that they ate only after they carried out the psak. Moreover, when they sold Yosef, what did they buy with the money? Shoes. Why did they buy shoes? Next question. But their brother was probably going to die. Imagine they basically sold Yosef to terrorists. So they should be sitting shiva. Is an avel allowed to wear shoes? No. So think about it. They sell their brother. Who knows? He's probably dead. And what do? They put on shoes. Why do they put on shoes? Because the halacha is that even though somebody who's an avel has to take off his shoes, but if a relative is killed by Bezdin, there's no avelos. You're not allowed to sit shiva. So to demonstrate, they weren't killing him. It was the psak halacha. It was the decision of a court. So they dafka bought shoes to indicate they're clean. We're not even sitting shiva for him. Now, question.
How could brothers be the judges? They're all negay, but
so it could be the sin was that because they hated him, they were disqualified to judge him. That was a sin. It was an improper. It was a violation of the laws of adjudication. Yeah, procedural law. What?
You just said it's not sin. It was a din of roidik.
Yeah, but they should have known that because they had they were nageh b'davar. Now, which means they got the right psak. He actually was chayiv misa, but they were not allowed to be the dayanim. So it's not that they came to the wrong decision. It's that they weren't allowed to be the ones to decide. The bottom line is, the brother's decision to sell Yosef was the decision of a court. So I ask you, if the decision of the brothers was the decision of the court, which one of the brothers was probably most responsible for what happened to Yosef? I would argue Yissaschar. I never saw that anywhere, but if you understand that the Mechira was the decision of the court, and the Sanhedrin of Klal Yisrael, the Dayanim of, in other words, Yosef's the Melech, Yosef is the Yisoid, and Yehuda's the Melech, and Levi are the Tamil Chachamim. But who's the Sanhedrin? Yissaschar. So who's the Rosh Sanhedrin of the brothers? I think it's reasonable to say Yissaschar. So in a certain sense, which brother is most responsible for what happened to Yosef? Yissaschar. Comes the Zohar HaKadosh, and the Zohar HaKadosh asks that we know that the 10 brothers, they had to pay the price, that they came back in the guise of the Asar Arugei Malchus. One of them was Rabbi Akiva, frek the Zohar. But Rabbi Akiva, lesle zechus avos, answers the Zohar cryptically, umi b'nei Yissaschar yoidei bina la'itim. So the Zohar asks, Rabbi Akiva didn't have zechus avos, and the Zohar answers, from the sons of Yissaschar yoidei bina la'itim. So Rav Moshe Cordovero says, what's the Zohar's kasha, and what's the Zohar's answer? What's the Zohar saying? Says Rav Moshe Cordovero, the Zohar is asking very simply. The Zohar wants to know, we know Rabbi Akiva is one of the 10 martyrs, but how could he be a martyr for one of the Shvatim when he's from Gerim? So he doesn't have Zechusim. So how could he be Mechaper for one of the Shiftei Ka? The answer is, he does have Zechus Avos. Why? Because even though he's from Gerim, he was the Gilgal of Yissaschar. Says the Ramak, at what age, Yissaschar, the Yoidei Bina, they have Bina. What age does a person have Bina? What age does Bina kick in?
13.
13 you come chayv mitzvahs. 20 you have 30 you have koyach. 40 Bina. That's why Rabbi Akiva started to learn at 40 years old, because since he's the Gilgal of Yissaschar, and Yissaschar is the master of Bina, and Bina kicks in at 40, that's why Rabbi Akiva started to learn at 40. Now, who caused Yissaschar to be born? Who was Leah riding when she went out toward Yaakov Avinu? Leah was riding a donkey. That's why Rabbi Akiva said when he was in Am Haaretz, who would give me a Talmud Chacham? I'll bite them like a donkey. Because Rabbi Akiva knew about donkeys, says Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. By the way, they're bad donkeys and they're good donkeys. We spoke about that a lot in the last couple of weeks. You know, Yishmael is also Chamar. But Yissaschar is Chamar L'Toiv. Rabbi Akiva was a klipa of Chamar L'Toiv. Now, so it comes out like this. You know who else says this? The Arizal says in the Shara Psukim that Be'inyan Rabbi Akiva shehu Yissaschar ki Yissaschar nislabish v'nisaber b'Rabbi Akiva atzmai. This is the secret of Yissaschar Chamor Garem. Yissaschar was nisaber b'Rabbi Akiva, who said v'anashchenu kechamor. And the student said, no, Rabbi, like a dog. No, he said like a donkey. By the way, the Gra says the same thing. That who is Rabbi Akiva? Yissaschar. Now, in years past, and I started off the shir by saying that this is the final pin in the subject that we've been discussing for a number of years with the Mechiras Yosef and the Asar Harugei Malchus. We learned the opinion of Megala Amukos, Rabbi Akiva Shimon. That's why Shimon had the worst punishment of all. I'm sorry, that's why Rabbi Akiva had the worst punishment of all, because he's Shimon. We brought the opinion that Rabbi Akiva is Yosef. We brought the opinion Rabbi Akiva is God. And today, one final opinion, the Zayar, the Ari, Rabbi Akiva is none other than Yissaschar. Now, if Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef, and that's alluded to, that Chanukah is merumaz in utavayach tevach v'hachein, and according to the way we're understanding it, that the sale of Yosef was adjudicated as a Sanhedrin, and then you can make the case that which one of the brothers is most responsible for selling Yosef? Yissaschar. There's no wonder then that if Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef, why Chanukah was established by the Bnei Bina Shevet Yosef. Because since Shevet Yissaschar, in other words, if Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef, and the sale of Yosef was carried out by the Rosh Sanhedrin, Yissaschar, so you think it's a coincidence that the Shevet Yissaschar were the ones who were the Bnei Bina who established Chanukah? And not only did they establish Chanukah, they also were the ones who, it was their idea to inaugurate the Mizbeach, which is another element of Chanukah. Now, just one added Nakuda. What was the sin of the brothers? Did they make the wrong decision? They didn't make the wrong decision, but they didn't deliberate enough. They should have really thought it over. They should have been more deliberate, and they should have realized that even if they're coming to the right decision, but they're not qualified to be making that decision. You know, it's very interesting, when it comes to Chanukah, the Gemara says that the Yevanu came into the Heichal and they contaminated all the oil in the Heichal, and the Chashmonaim prevailed, and they only found one jug, and they lit it, and it lasted for 8 days. Says the Gemara, L'shana acheres, in year 2, they established and made Chanukah Yom Tov B'Haloida. Why year 2? Why not year 1? So it's a very big question on the Gemara. Why didn't they establish Chanukah in year 1? So the Imrei Emes says, from here we see that even when you have a good idea, take your time. You don't have to, don't jump. But in light of what we're learning, that Chanukah is a tikkun from Mechiras Yosef, and in a certain sense, the halachic element of Mechiras Yosef was carried out, perhaps we're suggesting, ulai, by Yissaschar, which also would be another reason why Rabbi Akiva got the most severe punishment. In other words, according to this approach, that Rabbi Akiva is Yissaschar, it also is logical why Rabbi Akiva got the most severe, because again, this was an incorrect halachic decision. Maybe that's why in the formulation of Chanukah they took extra measure. They waited till year 2 to make sure, they deliberated and they did it in due time. So this is call it, at least for us, the final piece in the who's who of the Asara Harugei Malchus. By the way, Arizal also says that not only did Yissaschar become Rabbi Akiva, but before Rabbi Akiva, it was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai who also started learning at 40 years old. So you see, Mamish Neflois Mitarasenu, and when we say the Ma'isur, the Bnei Bina, it's suggested, are the Shevet Yissaschar, who are Yoidei Bina Leitim. They were the ones specifically to Masakin the Cheder Mechiras Yosef, Yemei Shmoino Kavushir Renanim. That's why Chanukah time we specifically read the parashiyos of Vayeshev and Mikeitz. Wishing everyone a freilich and Chanukah, and we'll see everybody Bez Hashem next week for Parshas Vayigash. Shkayach.
I thought Chanukah was given to us because of the accident. We went back to the patent to that.